I'm Jose Candelario. On this evening, we will be speaking with Geoff Fox, meteorologist, local legend. So you're from Brooklyn originally, but you don't have a New York accent.
No, I was born in Brooklyn. The first couple of years I lived in Brooklyn. And we had a neighbor who was a speech therapist, and she took great pride in helping me learn to speak as a toddler. And that probably has something to do with it. I've worked on it over the years. I know, I had much of it. And my parents, oh my God, did they have it? The influence of television. We don't have regional accents anymore like we used to.
Speaking about your parents, can you tell me a little bit about them and how was it growing up in that household?
Oh, well, my dad worked most jobs he worked 48 hours, 6 days a week. So, yeah, it was a little bit difficult. And we spent a lot of time on the weekends going to see my grandparents on my mother's side. They had a little Cape Cod in Laurelton. Are you familiar with that neighborhood? In
Mm-hmm.
Queens and Springfield Gardens. That was the outdoors to me because at age 3, we moved to a place called Electchester, which is just south of the Long Island Expressway, just past the Casino Boulevard exit. I say this like everybody in New Haven would know where in Queens this is. But it was a fifth floor apartment, northern exposure, so we never saw the sun. I overlooked a couple of parking lots for the residents, and I could see in the distance, once it was erected, the Throgs Neck Bridge. So that was
Wow.
sort of cool. I would look at the lights at night. I was a nerd. I was a geek. I was a dweeb. I took a test to go to a special high school in New York City called Brooklyn Tech, where I went for 4 years, which meant that I had no social involvement with girls for all that time. And to get to school, I took a bus and 2 subways. Same thing to get home in the afternoon. So school took up a lot of time for me.
Boy, you would talk to your mom a lot.
I
What kind of
did, yeah.
what kind of mother was she to you?
I used to call her every night on my way home from work, and we would just chat. It was fabulous. But as I'm sure many of your listeners know, when your parent has Alzheimer's, dementia, it's like they're taken away while they're still there. My mom died physically, but she had been dead for years before that because she had been robbed by Alzheimer's. It's just terrible, Jose. I'm the master of diseases with no cure because I too have had one. So, it runs in the family, I guess.
But
But
as a child growing up, what's a little antidote for your mom, or what kind of like ethic did really stick with you throughout your whole life?
my parents were everything that was represented by all the things that got the Democrats a loss in this election. We were very liberal, very accepting, very education oriented, very meritocracy oriented. And, that's the way we went through life. Uh, I went to an integrated school. I had friends of a few races. It was a good upbringing, but we were in a little tiny apartment. It was one of the last built that didn't have to have dual staircases in the building because on the outside it had a fire escape. They don't have those anywhere else but New York, do they?
No.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yes. So I mean, you're carrying groceries and everything, laundry.
Well, no, you wouldn't. I never used that for just going somewhere. We did have an elevator in the building, but I was such a wuss. I was probably 14 or 15 before I would ride in it by myself. So I went up and down the stairs to our fifth floor apartment every day. We were in apartment 5E. Dennis from apartment 5F is still my friend. And we met in 1953.
Community has changed a lot then. How was the community in general when you stepped outside and
Well,
you did you know all your neighbors?
yes, because everybody moved in at basically the same time, within a year or so of one another. So everybody saw everybody else. We all had the same problems. It was interesting. It was built in a way that you wouldn't build something today. There were no professional services nearby, no doctors, no dentists. There was a small grocery store, but it served us. And next door, we had a city housing project. So there were thousands of people and this one little grocery store. It was not built thinking fully through what you needed for a neighborhood like this. My dad was a great guy. My dad believed, now he didn't own the company, but my dad believed you don't make a profit on selling things to friends and you don't make a profit on charity. I did a lot of charity appearances. I've been to a lot of churches. A lot of folks have seen me at funerals and at schools and at civic functions. That was all done because I owed that to the people of Connecticut. I never received a penny for any of doing any of that stuff. That's just what I felt my give back was. I know I'm skipping ahead here, Jose, but the people of Connecticut and New Haven specifically treated me better than any human has a right to be treated.
We're speaking with the legend, weatherman, and so much more to our community, Geoff Fox. So tell me a little bit about your start in radio.
Well, you talk about community. The guy who broke me in the first day teaching me how to run the board is still my really good friend, and he and his wife are coming to visit in January. That was 1969. My first night on the air, thankfully, no one listened. And how do I know no one listened? Because my first night on the air was the night the astronauts landed on the moon. So I drove from Boston to Fall River and I stopped at a rest area. Would that have been on Route 6, maybe? I stopped in a rest area and went inside, and you didn't need a radio because every car had their windows open and every car had their radio on and was listening to mission control. And back in those pre-digital days, all the radio station signals came out at the same time.
So your first day on the radio, you're there. Was it natural to just have a
Oh
good
yeah,
voice?
I always wanted to be on the radio. Later asked me who my inspiration is for television. I listened to the guys in the mid and late 60s when they were starting to transition away from really, hey, yuck, yuck, yucking and talking all the time, all that crap. But they were still funny. They still did bits on the air. And I listened to guys in Buffalo. I was a big listener to WKBW, even though I grew up in Queens. I listened to them more than I listened to Dan Ingram on WABC. Anyway, I would listen to Joey Reynolds and then Bud Ballou. And I listened to these guys and learned how it was done. And then, radio, this, they basically let you loose. They put up small fences that you can jump over if you have to. I got to do whatever I wanted and have a good time. I guess early on, people thought I had some talent, and so they let me express it.
What kind of music did you play?
I started off, the first station was Top 40, WSAR, Fall River, Mass. Then I went to WBT in Charlotte, where I did nights. Now, WBT at that time, well, still, is a 50,000 watt clear. Back then, there were only two stations on at night on 1110, WBT in Charlotte and KFAB in Omaha. That was it. And WBT sent no signal west, and KFAB sent no signal east. And so up and down the East Coast, WBT blanketed. And my dad, while he would drive home from work from Brooklyn to Queens, would listen to me on the radio from WBT at night. I got to play a jingle that said, from Canada to Florida, Carolina and the USA, 1110 WBT. And we got calls from Canada to Florida. In fact, once the receptionist, yes, we had a nighttime receptionist. We were AM, FM, and TV. She was on till 11:30, till the news was over. She told me we got some calls from Scandinavia. It
Mm.
was a big signal. And then I went to WGAR in Cleveland. And then I bounced around. I went to Phoenix. And then I went to 5 years in Philadelphia, and I discovered myself. I learned how to be a disc jockey. I learned you can be a smart aleck as long as you made yourself the butt of the jokes and not other people. And so I learned to be self deprecating. And that seemed to be a successful style. And I did mornings in Philadelphia, alas, on an AM station when AM was already rapidly deteriorating.
How did you break into television? What was the bridge, and who gave you that opportunity?
So the guy who broke me in on the board at WSAR was at WBT by then. And they were AM, FM, and TV. I had already been and left WBT. And they were starting PM Magazine. And he went to the TV people and he said, I can do this. And he did a year of it. And I watched some air checks of his and I said, I can do that. And I started saving everything I did in front of a camera, like telethons. And I convinced someone at a station that I auditioned for to allow me to give me back my audition tape that I did for them with their camera. And I got a job. I got an offer from West Virginia and Buffalo. And I decided Buffalo was the lesser of the two evils. And so I went there to do PM Magazine. So that was before the ubiquity of four-wheel drive. So all we had was a rear-wheel drive Dodge van in Buffalo.
Mm.
Now, the good news is Buffalo itself is pretty flat. But once you get out into the suburbs, it's not. But you'll learn how to drive in the snow because you do it so often. Uh, Doing PM Magazine was like TV boot camp. You did stand ups and stories, and you had to learn to do a whole bunch of stuff and how to walk and talk at the same time.
Mm.
I know that sounds easy, but it's not as easy as it seems. But after a few years of doing that, I realized it's cold out here. We did a shoot, and the shoot was ostensibly about modern helicopter medics in the military. So we went to the Niagara Falls Air Force Base, where they allowed us to stand in front of some helicopters that were the same type as used in the story we were going to front. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to an airport in late December in Niagara Falls, where it's all open space. And so the wind just can come whipping through. It was so cold, Jose. I could not form words with my lips. I had to blow on my lips to try and get them so they could make shapes so I could say words. And it was then I decided maybe there's a better way to make a living. Uh, so a weather job was opening up on TV. It was before the era of meteorologist, which I became. But I said, I can do this. And so I started being the weekend meteorologist and less PM magazine. And so that's how I transitioned to weather. And then Helene and I were in New York for something. And I knew that there was a job opening at WTNH. And they didn't want to fly me in for an interview or anything, but I asked if I was in the area, would they see me? And Mike Seacrest said yes. He was the news director. Their first choice at the time, and I can only tell you now because he would be so pissed if I told it while he was alive. Their first choice was Dr. Mel, who was very upset that they decided to go with me. But here's the reason why. We go through the whole interview and he sees my performance. And obviously, my performance and Dr. Mel's performance are different and have to be judged on different scales. And the fact that, you know, he was already a name in the market and people knew him because he did the weather with the cartoons in the morning. It's probably before you remember, Jose. You do remember?
No, I wasn't probably even born yet.
So, but the end of the interview, I say, listen, there's one more thing I want to show you. I know you have this weather system. And I open up my attache case and I took out a floppy disk. Now, most people are familiar with the hard plastic floppy disk.
Yes.
And then from before that, there was the real floppy disk, the 5.25-inch floppy disk. This was the 8.5-inch floppy disk. This was before, and it held less stuff on it. But we had the same weather system in Buffalo, and I had recorded some stuff. And I said, I know you have a weather system. Let me show you some of the stuff it can do. And that got me the job. I left. I saw Helene on my way home. I said, I did not get it. I screwed up. Mike Seacrest, I think, may have been the best boss in TV I ever had. I mean, I like my bosses now, you know, but I've been working in Nebraska on and off for 7 years, and they've only talked to me once about what they didn't like, and it wasn't me, it was a graphic, and it was such a small thing, and they were probably right, and that was it. They've been quiet ever since.
Talking to Geoff Fox, good friend of mine.
You know, no one called me Jeffy but you.
I know. I'm probably the only one allowed to, so I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hold on. Kathy did.
Yes.
Kathy also called me Jeffy. And before, and I'm not going to say who, but before they went to work at Channel 8, they used to watch when they were stoned, and they would find it really funny when I bring my hand right up to the camera to try and make some sort of point. You ran my camera many times. You know, I did all the crap you're not supposed to do. I touched the wall. I moved back and forth.
You were very unique in your presence, and you're always comfortable. Did that come with time, or is it because you're just a rule breaker at heart, or
No, I can tell you now who my inspiration is. Nearly everything I do on television, as far as performance is concerned, not the mechanics of knowing about weather and stuff like that, but performance, I learned watching Soupy Sales. Soupy Sales knew how to break down the fourth wall. He knew how to make the crew laugh. He knew how to make people feel like they were on the inside of inside jokes. He knew exactly how to do it, and he taught me. Because when I was a kid, he was on live every afternoon. And you know, they only scripted a tiny bit of that show. You know, they would maybe write an old joke, and then the whole idea was, could he and one of the puppets stretch the joke out to 3 minutes? But he knew how to. Did I talk to you when I was on the air?
Mm.
You're damn right I did. Just like Soupy did. And you probably don't even know who this guy is. George Burns.
Of course.
George Burns and Gracie Allen. George Burns, all he did was set up Gracie
Mm.
and break down the fourth wall. You know, so if I'm on TV and all of a sudden, instead of looking like this at the camera, I go like this, you know, so people will know all of a sudden I'm talking to them personally as opposed to talking to the television.
Mm.
And that's what he taught me.
You also, because of your nerdy background, were always up on the latest gadgets, on the latest technology, always, always, always. And and you were always bringing something new and showing me something different. And so I found all that so interesting. How much did that help you throughout your career?
See this? There is a microcomputer which is not as powerful as obviously a regular computer, but that is the lens of a small camera, and that is an LED. And there are programs that I can use this to do time lapse with. Total cost about $11.
How important were finances? How did that pay off later in life?
Well, you know, I had cancer, and that kept me from working for a while. And we went through a lot in savings. In fact, most of our savings. And so, you know, I'm age 74 when people would normally be retired, and I worked two jobs. Now, it's not like stacking boxes in the warehouse. You know, I'm not going to get worn down by these jobs. And when I'm finished with you, Jose, I'm going to record the weather that will run in the morning on Scripps News. It takes me like a half hour, 45 minutes, but that's a full-time job for me.
In all your years at News 8, who were your favorites?
You know, I mean, I used to go to dinner every night with Nyberg and Noah, you know. We've really lost touch to a certain extent. Came back and did some subbing during the summer. We live in La Quinta, California, if you're going to stop by. We live with the old people.
This is the Electric Drum. I'm Jose Candelario on 94.3 WYBC, the rhythm of the city. We're talking with Geoff Fox, meteorologist extraordinaire. Sure doing weather out in Nebraska, Scripps.
This home studio that I have, this is something I was talking about back when we worked together.
You constantly were talking about doing it yourself, and because they would come in and redo the studio, and you'll be like, if I did it my way, you engineered your own studio.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the few people in television who is comfortable on either side of the camera.
D- uh,
You often found me back in engineering talking with the guys back there because I felt I had a lot in common with them. And that's, I think, very unusual for people who are, and for those of you listening, I apologize for using this word, who are considered talent at the TV station.
Is global warming a thing, or is it just natural occurrences?
Sure. Let's separate what I do from what global warming is. Global warming speaks about climate, that the underlying factors, like how much greenhouse gas we're putting in the atmosphere, things like that, how that is changing our atmosphere. I forecast the weather. Even though the underlying factors may be different, the way I use them and enter them into my forecast remains the same. So on a daily basis, I won't be looking at a forecast and go, oh my God, well, that's due to global warming. I can't see that. I can't see that in my weather forecasting. Where I can see that is where we have a recurrence of really rare events over a short amount of time. I mean, what's going on now in the Pacific Northwest? If I look back, could I find other times when this has happened? Probably, but it's still a very rare event.
How much of the almanac do you really use in weather, prognostication?
I mean, the Farmer's Almanac?
Yes, sir.
I wish I could be that vague. No, I don't think there's any efficacy in that at all. But I will tell you, forecasting is definitely improved in the 40 plus years I've been doing it. We didn't have anywhere near the tools that we have today, the resources that we have, just the access to data. I make about 100,000 weather maps here every day. I have a server that's running in what used to be a closet. 100,000 sounds like a lot, but in the general scheme of things, it is not.
We're in our final minutes here. You've overcome some challenges personally in your life dealing with cancer. What has these obstacles taught you?
I learned, well, first of all, I had pancreatic cancer. Most people are dead within 6 months. It's crazy. It's a terrible, terrible disease. If they find it before it is spread, which is in one of three cases, then it's possible for them to perform what's called Whipple surgery, which is considered not for the patient, but for the surgeon, the most difficult surgery you can perform. I had two surgeons. Mine was very quick, 6 hours. They take your digestive system and put it on a table next to you. Your pancreas is behind everything. So they have to remove everything to get at it. Then when they connect stuff, they don't connect it the way it was connected before, and they leave out some stuff. I learned that getting through cancer, you can't look at it as the whole show that you're going to have to go through, because that is very daunting. You have to look at it a minute at a time, because a minute at a time you can take it. And I was able to get through it. People say I'm a hero and I'm a great example. No, I'm just what you do when you have cancer if you want to live. Not everyone, most people are not as successful as I am. I am a unicorn, Jose. I think my result right now after 8 plus years is puts me in the low single digits percentage of people who live through this disease. I've been injured by the treatment. I have what's called neuropathy, where all the nerves in my feet and my legs and my hands are dead. And so it feels like I'm getting little electric shocks in all those places 24 hours a day. It doesn't hurt, it's not painful, it's just bothersome. You learn to live with it. You make a decision. Do I want to live with this, or do I want to give up? And at this point, I really don't see any need to give up. I can overcome it. Am I weaker than I once was? Yeah. Can I go more than like 10 minutes away from a bathroom? No. Am I enjoying life? Yes. Do I wish I could travel, but I can't? Yes.
We're nearing the end of our conversation here, Geoff, and like always to all my guests, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Jose. First of all, I hope I didn't bore you.
Never.
Okay. People of New Haven, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. You have been so nice to me. Really. There's no way that anyone deserves the treatment you've given me my whole time in New Haven. Jose, I did one thing to win over people. And since that day, I have been golden to everyone. And that was Hurricane Gloria. Hurricane Gloria made my career in Connecticut. It legitimized me. It made me, okay, I'm a little bit of a wisecracker, but maybe he can handle it when the chips are down. And, you talk to people now in their 50s and 60s, they're going to tell you how they remember watching me during Hurricane Gloria. And anyway, you were so nice to me. I mean, I even got to go in to through the kitchen on Worcester Street. Shh, don't tell.
Thank you so much for your time, Geoff.